that, okay, you have this goal. We're not going to come and hit the ball for you. That's your job and you're best at it. But we're just going to give you the macros according to it. Now, I would like to proudly say that 75, if not 80% of my LP base are people and are investors that love contributing way beyond the capital they get. In a meeting that we were having with a few founders, I mean, a duo, they asked us our thesis and they were silent after that.
Hello and welcome to the Excluto podcast. I'm Vijay Rajendran and I'm a Silicon Valley-based investor and executive coach, and here as guest host for this episode of the podcast. I'm delighted to share with you more stories and tales from the world of venture capital with another superb guest on today's episode. But I do want to also share with folks that, as said before, today's episode does not represent financial or investment or legal or tax advice, and is purely a presentation of an educational and informative nature. So with that, it is my great pleasure to welcome Sanil Sachar of Huddle Ventures to the podcast. Welcome, Sanil.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise. So this is a great opportunity to talk about you and your career and your experience. I am really interested in understanding, before we talk about Huddle Ventures, a little bit about you, and if you can share with us, where you're from, where you grew up, and a little bit about your early career.
Absolutely. So I've always been a very curious person. I've always had more questions to ask ever since I was a young kid, and I think that really led to a lot of what we do today at Huddle Ventures. I think curiosity to solve these questions, to solve problems, is how that one trait stays on with my co-founder, me, our entire team. But just before we get into what we do today, I come from New Delhi. Family is from New Delhi, India. I've been born and brought up here up until I was 15 and a half, going on 16. That's when I then shifted my own base and to the UK. I was trying to pursue playing football professionally for a few years, which is safe to say was I was fairly unsuccessful in doing so, and I'm in hindsight very glad because I wouldn't be able to be here today, have conversations, and make friends with folks like yourself and learn. So from being in a real huddle on a football field today, we're being able to huddle and work with some great founders and investors who trust us. So my career started with professionally working with Star Sports. I was based in Mumbai. Today I'm based in Gurgaon. And Mumbai was a great city to start my career. As the stereotype of the city goes, it is very fast-paced, has some incredible people that allow you to live your individuality, be who you are. Star Sports was an incredible environment to start my career, for the simple reason that I was thrown into the deep with a team that trusted me, allowed me to learn through making mistakes, which is quite unheard of, at least again stereotypically so, when you're working in a large corporate where there's so much on the line. I worked with the team that launched the Indian Super League, the football league that is in India, completing 10 years today, or 10 years in October this year. Post that, I was part of, after doing marketing and a bit of management, I then did product building and revenue generation for Star Sports on the Cricket World Cup in 2015. While it wasn't a good World Cup for India's performance, which I'm sure will be in the T20 World Cup this time, it was a great experience again. I was working alongside some incredible peers and bosses that I had, again, who trusted me, gave me more tasks than I thought I was going to be able to truly fulfill. And I think these learnings, of having mentors for bosses, recognizing that they're your mentor, seeing their vigor in trying to perform, seeing how they trust you in executing a collective task where they might be accountable. All of these traits have been inculcated in not just me, but everything that we do at Huddle, which is how do we trust founders? How do they trust us? Building their teams with them. As a nature of coming in so early, again, we can touch upon the nuances of Huddle as an ecosystem for our founders, but a lot of my early years, and I just want to mention that while I've only been working for just over 10 years, I think it's still early. It's always going to be that day one mentality. So if you hear me saying it's early days, I think that's going to be same if we're talking 10 years from now or 20 years from now. Post that, I've had operating experience. The bug of curiosity really ensured that I try my hands in multiple fields that were always I was always enamored by. I've been fortunate to have experienced a bootstrap failed venture that teaches you a lot. It teaches you a lot about yourself, especially about what you're not good at. I think that recognition is critical in trying to know where do you really need to enable yourself and how do you enable yourself. Sometimes it's self-taught, and in my opinion, it's actually best when you can build a team that is way smarter than you. Get co-founders who are people you look up to because of their strengths, which might be your weaknesses. Post that, I have had operating experience in a sports brand that I remain to be a stakeholder and a very passive co-owner of now. Been extremely proud of that, again, as a nature of being a sports person, by my mindset and or trying to imbibe that ethos every day. The operating experience teaches you that building an organization is more in the early days, and I think later as well, it's more it's a mental game. It's more on the softer skills than it is really about the Excel sheets or what's happening in the boardrooms or the meeting rooms. Because it's all about endurance in the early days. It's all about figuring out what works for you. It's about ensuring that your product market fit has longevity to it. And then comes replication and diversification. And learning all of that in my earlier days has assisted us and assists us all together with everyone's operating experience in how we view our founders, how we back our founders today. Investing now came as a virtue of building just incredible circles of friends around me. I've always, even when I was younger, tried imbibing the art of cold calling, the art of always saying yes. There was a book that I read called "Screw It, Let's Do It" by Sir Richard Branson, which, as a disclaimer, I did read because it was a very thin book, but it was one of the best, if not the best book I have read, for the simple reason that in one of the chapters it mentions that if someone gives you an opportunity, always take it. What's the worst that's going to happen, right? You're going to face failure. You're going to not be comfortable. But that one page, maybe that one line has really tattooed itself in my brain. And I always like saying yes to social events. I do like meeting people. The art of being a listener, just absorbing things, is very important. And I was very lucky that while I started doing that again when I was, in my early 20s, enabled me to learn about what other people are building, in social commerce, in coffee, in media. And I think that's where I started then earmarking whatever capital I could allocate as per my risk appetite to invest in their journeys. The purpose of investing, this might, again, as you rightly said, this is a personal reason to do so, not necessarily correct, was to learn and to enable them in whatever I could do. And I feel the best enablement you can provide anyone with a business is ensuring business development for them, giving them business development. You can call that sales, you could call that product reach, you could call that marketing, being a fan of their work, being a voice for them when you're out there in public, whatever your circle and your reach is. And as I started doing that, I started learning a lot more about how investments can be made better in for me, and then as a in hindsight for all the investors now that trust us. And that again is the journey of how Huddle came to be, with how Ishan, my co-founder, and I set up the organization. Lastly, as curiosity has always been my biggest and my best friend. I have dabbled in multiple fields across. I do like thinking like an artist as well. Have tried writing fiction, because I do believe it's important to have both sides of your brain, left and right, tussling with one another, ensuring you have perspective. And that's largely the journey so far that I can recall.
That's very cool. I have one question. What role does sports play in your life today?
I'm going to try and sum that up much shorter than the monologue that I think I gave earlier. The mindset of a sports person, which is to always try and improve every day. And that goes into everything that we do. I think constant improvement and progress is how sports stays on with me. And in order to do that, you have to practice what you preach. I do practice that. When I do wake up, I have to spend time in some sort of meditation, even if it is a quick exercise. If there is little time, I think it's important for me to ensure that I have spent time in spending time with myself. I think that's something that I try and do every single day, irrespective of how busy days can be, because that's the easiest excuse I can tell myself that's going to be a busy day, or yesterday was a busy day. Even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes, it's about consistency, and it's about constant improvement.
Consistency and constant improvement. Those are really important characteristics for people, building a business, and for those that invest in them. Certainly, we want to be constantly shipping product. We want to be constantly focused on our strategy and delighting our customers. All these things are very easy to say, really hard to do. And that requires just some attention to doing the same thing with a focus on consistency and improvement. So I think that really resonates.
I would love to actually get your perspective, because as someone who's built businesses, like yourself, been an operator, a very large part of, I think, the sports person's mindset also is patience, and as is patience a key trait in building sustainable, long-lasting businesses. Typically, impatience is the reason why a lot of failure happens. Impatience in mindset of the team around you, impatience in giving your product time, too much patience in giving your product time. So how do you view the sports person's mindset? What has been the key trait for you when you today back ventures, and yesterday and even today have been an operator?
So I'll talk about 2 times in the life of a company where I think that mindset is helpful. There is this long period before product market fit where you are doing things again and again, and you know that you're good at this, right? Maybe you're just like you can be good at a sport. However, what you may find is you are not getting the instant results, because there's a long period of time you just have to keep working on getting better, and you have to try many things, and you have to keep iterating in order to get to that place of product market fit where you have the right mix of features, perhaps, so that customers are delighted and they stop churning. Similarly, you get to a much later time where the company is scaling up, and it's not a venture scale, unicorn success yet. But you have a lot of the expectations of a big company, but perhaps the DNA still of a small organization, and you're still going through growing pains. Everything is hard. And that's where I think a different type of patience and perhaps focus is on, okay, we're trust the process, right? Trust the process, and this is what we need to do in order to build the mechanisms to scale, communication architecture, belief in people, and of course the KPIs, metrics, OKRs, whatever it is that lets you train towards a particular goal and getting certain results and getting better and continuously improving, as you pointed out. So those are like the two times where I've observed from working with many founders and as a VC, and then prior in my experience as a founder and venture studio leader, like what it looks like for people to break through those barriers. It's a great topic that I think is something that people don't talk about enough. Instead, there's just like a daily impatience with everything, and largely that's driven by stress. And then so if founders can kind of see around that and understand, okay, here's what I'm doing. I need to trust the process. This is the thing I want to do, and this is how we're going to bring results to the company. They need to do that. They still need to probably change things, but again, they can only change what they can see. And so that requires both an ability to keep that long-term perspective and what they're trying to do, and like try new things all the time. So it's not static by any means, that idea of patience.
I agree with you. Yeah.
I do want to ask, when you invest, and this can be what you're looking for in those founders, what are your core principles to investing in startups, and what are some criteria that you can share?
The first is we seek and we try and gauge the obsession that the founders and the teams have. I use the word obsession very consciously. I think you have to be absolutely obsessed about building a venture, because naturally it's a very long process. There are a lot of stakeholders accountable, a lot of people's jobs accountable. You can't be obsessed with the result. You have to be obsessed with the journey. Again, it's a very cliched point, but it's a cliche for a reason. That it's because it's true. We look for absolute obsession. We correlate that with why are they trying to solve it. So the why is incredibly important. And how we correlate the why is understanding the depth that they have in what they're trying to solve, and trying to build multiple contingencies in how they could get to their set goal. And we don't set extremely long milestones. I think it's not necessarily fair to set extremely long milestones when you're working in the early stages. It's important to be conscious about shorter goals. It's important to know that it's most likely not going to go into a straight path, and if it is, we're probably doing it the wrong way. And it's important to understand the why while correlating their obsession. At the same time, we also work with founders with such depth prior to making a decision in investing, that it's important to see, are they evaluating us? I think the best founders, and when I say best, I mean the most possessive founders about their organization, who they is who they want to work with. And that comes in two ways. So how are they evaluating us as a fund? Because I don't think there's any there's no lack of capital. Capital can come in varied forms. So why are we going to be their investors, their stakeholders, and their extended team? And
what's a good question? What's a good question you've gotten from a founder directed to you as an investor that you wish more people would ask?
Yeah, I mean, without naming one, this came recently in a meeting that we were having with a few founders. I mean, a duo. They asked us our thesis, and they were silent after that. They just asked us our thesis, and they were so nuanced about their question because it was specific towards the subsector that they're in, and they just wanted to hear our perspective about why this will work. And they, I don't want to disclose too much because I don't have their consent to do so. But in the subsector that they were in, it's something that is can be considered ahead of its time. So why are we even considering something at that nature? How do we look at being patient? What's something that we were talking about? What do we feel will be related success to something that's ahead of its time? And I think that depth was incredibly mature, and I say that with so much respect to founders that question you in that manner, because it makes you question yourself if, as a fund, we don't have the necessary answers. Because yes, we are investing in people and we're backing people, but those people are building something that we have to have knowledge about. And internally, this gets me to an evaluation criteria, which is important. That how do we enable these founders? I feel the best enablement you can do, as I was mentioning earlier, be it an individual investor or a fund in the early stages, is developing business for them, helping them create traction, helping them with maturing their productization or service journey ahead of the curve, so that when they need to diversify, be it through length into their business, or so that's depth or horizontal diversification, we've already earmarked what is helpful in helping them figure out longevity for their business, so that they don't necessarily have to do that exercise themselves. I'm not saying it's important for them not to do it. If we can enable them, we have this internal narrative that, can we make our founders an octopus? Can we build arms for them and build with them in areas that enable them in the future and today? And then active fundraising. Do we have the ability to help them raise capital, be it in any form? The best form of capital is through your customers or your clients. The second, the second to that, and a fair second, is access to equity, working capital, revenue-based financing, whatever that might be. But can we give them access to the peers and friends that we have in the ecosystem way before time, so that they don't necessarily have to pitch, and they have access to these relationships where they can build into figuring out who they want to work with as they progress from pre-seed, seed to Series A, B, and C moving forward. And the last bit to your question, which is incredibly important, and all of these actually stand as extremely high. They all have the same weightage if evaluation, while we get evaluated, is how are these founders going to build a team around them? So why would someone want to work with them? Why would someone want to build what necessarily might have been their dream first, but now is someone else's as well? So what we gauge is the personality of the founders, and how can they attract talent? How do they view people that are way more capable than they might be in certain domains? How do they create sense of ownership for their team? I think for me, that is personally a very large learning as well. If you can create ownership in your organization, you've created something that has a sense of legacy attached to it, and legacy not from a vanity standpoint, legacy as a longevity for the ecosystem that you want to help build.
Amazing. And this is such a vision of legacy, big companies, the things you want to see in the future, the dreams of these founders. In between today and those dreams being realized, how do you look at your portfolio every day, or every week, or every month, or whenever is the right time to look at it?
That's a great question. I actually I have more questions to this for you right after. But we don't look at our portfolio every day. Um, we don't look at our portfolio as one portfolio either. We focus on each of our founders individually, like they are one portfolio. That is one of our learnings. We don't because we don't want to necessarily benchmark A versus B, because A is building a different business and B is building a different business. They both have different multiples attached to their growth. Rate of growth is varied. Rate of building their teams, their how they need to fundraise, how they're going to mature. There's even if it's in the same sector, there's no comparison, um, at least for us, and therefore we evaluate it separately. The reason I say that is internally, as we build and back ventures from the early stages of Huddle Ventures, we don't want to be in a business of building 2 or 3 outstanding companies. We rather build 7 to 8 out of 10 good companies. And for us, I know that's a very it could be a radical thought saying no, outstanding will always beat good. Um, I beg to differ. I think probability of building good and doing it right has a methodology to it. Good can turn into outstanding, but if you only focus on one portfolio too and try and stretch them, you're playing with fewer odds, and that's why we focus on our ventures individually. What we do as a principle is, the moment we've invested in a founder and their journey, we do a very intensive deep dive into the multiple short-term goals. While we do this in our pre-evaluation, in the multiple stages prior to investment committee and the decision being made collectively, we have a process after we've invested that what are your short-term goals. Now, your short-term goals could be fixed to what your next round might be, but truly it could be about creating stable state. So the question that we ask is, in stable state, is your business lucrative to you? Is it lucrative to sustain the growth of your of the employees that you have, the team members that you have? Can they see maturity in their journey? Now, as a matter of that, when do you need to diversify into products? You do it prior to your fundraise, after your fundraise, and while we marked all these posts, right? Think of it like a game of golf. Like we've earmarked what the 18-hole course is. Um, we then figure out how are we going to get there and what are the fundamental support functions needed. Many a times there are no functions of support needed, so all we have to do is evaluate, with the analogy of golf, what is the wind like, what is the wind like today? Is it a windier day? Is it not? do and if I had to compare that to what I'm saying from a startup point of view, are the macro environments allowing these goals to be met? Do we have a competitor that is undercutting, is creating a newer product, is trying to ruffle our feathers? So we're now trying to play the caddy for the founder, and we're trying to evaluate that. Okay, you had this goal. We're not going to come and hit the ball for you. You that's your job, and you're best at it. But we're just going to give you the macros according to it. Now, come the day where the founder says, listen, we do need this support, right? Take that swing for me. We're not going to still do that. I mean, we trust our founders wholeheartedly. We will evaluate, sit and say, we can sit this shot out. We can wait it out. And I think patience again comes. It's a together game. Building a venture. It is. I don't want to squeeze in the word huddle for the reason, but it truly is a huddle. You have to trust your peers, and I think that's where we then trust our advisors, our LPs that have built such fundamentally large and age-old and new-age businesses, to say, what did you do when you met this scenario? So it's, to your question, portfolio is a one startup at a time evaluation. And when we do have to evaluate how we're performing, it has to be done individually, because it'll be unfair for us to have one founder piggyback success for someone else not hitting it, because that's not their job. That's our job, ensuring that everyone does as well as they can.
That's really cool. Yeah, and certainly thinking about, how do you help as many people in the portfolio as possible is something that creates a good reputation for investors, I think, in the market.
Yeah, but how do you view this? I'd love to take some quotes in.
Yeah, I've seen so many different variations. I mean, when you have a couple funds and a new and small portfolio at the beginning, it's important to spend that time individually on companies. As companies grow, two things happen. One, you may be investing at a stage where they have long surpassed, and there are other investors who are playing a role. It's like you taught them in an earlier grade or year of their schooling, and then there are others who are there and should help. At the same time, there are people who develop deep relationships with many of their founders, and that's where there's both chemistry and an ability to help. Then you have earned the right and you have the trust to keep working with them over the long term. There are models where you have enormous portfolios and it becomes really difficult to manage one-on-one. But obviously the choice to, as an investor, either follow on or take a secondary sale or exit during a liquidity event is only ever driven on a one company basis. So even when you have hundreds and hundreds of portfolio companies, and you might be using all kinds of digital tools to track and stay in touch with them and ingest all of the information, updates, and things like that, it still comes down to your familiarity and closeness to individual companies, and that is I think much more art than science.
Yeah, I second that last bit, and thanks for the notes.
Of course, yeah. When it comes to LPs, because you mentioned LPs, LPs are typically very successful individuals. Certainly, they have their own business experience often. But I'm curious, if you could say more about what types of people are typically investors in VC funds, because we've been talking about founders, but on the other side of a fund are the fund's own investors.
From our perspective, we've got three different personality types and enablers that we have as LPs across both our funds, the first fund that has deployed capital and the second fund that is deploying capital currently. One of them is categorized as the founders and the promoters. Now, the difference in that definition for us is promoters I define as people that have built businesses that today are household names for us in kind of products that we have or the services that we are using. So promoters of those businesses, these are people that they it's just in their DNA now to continuously build while they're building within their large organizations that truly have a legacy, that have built pillars that just cannot be nudged or pushed aside. They want to now contribute to the ecosystem, and it's not philanthropic contribution. It's not just philanthropy as a way of doing it, but it's also about seeing other promoters like them being assisted, potential promoters like them. So they're contributing, and they contribute. I would like to proudly say that 75, if not 80% of my LP base are people and are investors that love contributing way beyond the capital they give. They are so active. They're so generous with their resources beyond financial capital, and that's what really adds even more fuel to the journey of our founders. And the reason they do that is because they just want to give to the ecosystem. They want to provide the enablement, be it in knowledge, be it in social capital, which could be development of business, product development, guidance, infrastructure support at a more affordable, at a more time specific manner, and quicker manner for our founders. The other bit is new age founders, people who have been able to build successful unicorns, are soon going to have their own, the Soonicorn mix. And these are newer age founders who, again, they're in that journey where they will become promoters, in the definition I was giving. So they've already started their journey in assisting founders. They have individually invested. Why they invest with us is, what I've gauged as per my conversations, is due to how active we do like being on the sidelines for our organizations. And I think they relate to that, that way of working with early stage companies. The second is family offices. Now, family offices are, for me, India is built by some incredible family offices, or built by people that have built incredible family offices. And having them is almost like that promoter mindset. They have so much infrastructure that they can enable. And in our case, with the kind of family offices that have invested across India, we do love building relationships with what is their L1 or L2 in the organizations they have, because that's where we can gather a lot of knowledge, data about what we're looking at, sectors we're looking at, the ability of gauging where a roadblock might come. So we do like looking at them as guidance providers, which again, they are providing. And we have so many family offices in India doing an incredible job today, investing their own corpus directly, as well as via funds like ourselves and others across the ecosystem that are doing such a good job. And then the third is the professionals, people that are working in our case, largely across hiring firms. These could be executive search firms that are helping CXOs or senior management get hired. These are chartered accountants. These are people from the legal fraternity, and these are people that can give a lot of professional guidance. People from large corporations have large networks that they've built, and I think they provide a lot of access to opening doors for our founders. So this mix and is invaluable, in addition to the capital that they've invested across our portfolio via our funds.
That's I think a really great observation about corporations investing, and then the business behind families that may invest in VC funds, is that those businesses get more innovative, and they learn, and they transform, and they grow and adapt to new technologies and new business models and new markets and segments of markets when they work with startups. Because a startup is an experiment on the future, basically, and so you get to benefit from that through whatever you get to try out, be it a partnership or something else, when you are a mature company. And it almost doesn't matter what industry. Everything has the potential to be changed or disrupted or accelerated, based on the shift in either technology or business model or something like that.
I'd also like to add that a lot of these limited partners, investors in funds, have diversified their portfolio across stages. They've invested across, and they obviously invest in public markets, they invest in pre-IPO, late stage, early, which also enables general partners to learn from their perspectives, learn from the benchmarks that they have across. You see, benchmarks are, I think we all would agree that benchmarks vary across stages, but there is a learning to it, because in order to get to that late stage, we can only learn from past data. Past data is not going to be future data, but past data can enable us to learn and adapt really well to specific scenarios that are in the stage that we are in. And these investors, the more time you can spend with them, hear from them, and one-on-one. Again, to your earlier question, we don't like talking about a portfolio on the whole with our investors. We understand each investor understands a certain company or a set of companies extremely well, and they can enable it, while they get access to all the information that we can provide them through constant reporting. We also do like to add specific asks of our companies in an ad hoc manner when our ventures need it, because it's important to create incredible inclusivity so that everyone understands the pulse of the organizations that we are all backing. But when you can learn from your investors' perspectives, it does help managers across board to further learn and from what we are doing. Because again, no fund is going to perform the same. No portfolio is going to perform the same as a result of that.
That's a great point, and there's so much we gain from that perspective. On that note, I want to get your perspective on some of the areas that you are bullish on these days. Things you're learning from observing the types of startups that are coming in the door, things you're seeing in the portfolio, things you're hearing from other investors and institutions.
We're sector agnostic early stage fund, so we invest across pre-seed, seed, follow up until pre-series A or a series A round. So for us, being sector agnostic has always been a key focus. However, there are certain themes that we've spent a lot more time on. I truly believe that the consumer ecosystem in India is going to continuously thrive due to the varied different economic stratas there are in this country. The depth of social media across has made people even more attuned to wanting to purchase online because of the kind of influence social media has. And I therefore believe there's not 3 but 4 Indias, and I think that's commonly reports that have been circulated do echo the depth that we have from a consumption standpoint. Now, as a virtue of that, we believe there will be multiple new consumer brands that will be built across the personal care ecosystem, across this entire ecosystem of new age parents that is emerging, be it products in baby care, be it in clothing, in the toys that they buy, in the healthcare provisions they might have, daycare centers, anything for the new age parents' wallet, I believe is a very large market to be catered towards. As a virtue of consumer brands growing, we believe the commerce enablement stack or the consumer enablement stack will also have a considerable growth. This is largely going to be in cold chain logistics, which is an area we have taken a substantial belief in because of the large market of demand that consumer brands will have. I think cold chain logistics, because due to the food consumption, due to medicine, the kind of medicines and penetration support they need over there. We believe that enablement of commerce, there's a venture in our portfolio called Light Store that enables companies to launch their offline locations. So giving companies access to launch and go offline, because I think online definitely has a certain depth to it, but you have to then have a emulsified and an integrated omni-channel approach. We believe tools that enable you to do better content creation, increase your revenue and ad spend, reduce your customer acquisition costs are definitely going to enable commerce. So the entire commerce enablement stack. On the other side of this, we are extremely, because of the stacks in the different Indias that are, or Bharats that there are, we also believe that healthcare has to be catered to. So we're looking actively at single specialty focus areas, while the treatment in, be it in oncology as a focus, be it focused specifically in the IVF and fertility centers. We've looked at many specialty organizations. In our first fund, we backed a company that has focused largely on surgeries as a segment. We're looking deeply now at the oncology space. And we feel single specialty for the middle India needs to be catered to. Standardizing healthcare for them, giving them quality healthcare, access to it, both online and more importantly offline, is a focus. We've made investments in sustainability as a focus. Sustainability for us largely lies in the agriculture ecosystem. This could be ventures like a green grahi in our portfolio that is in the insect protein space. It could be an e-feed on the other side, which is a more of a biosciences play in the agriculture ecosystem. India is made, and is built by the farmers and the agri ecosystem. And I think there's a lot, and there's going to be constant development to continuously enable them and assist them. These are some that immediately come to mind that we are looking at, as we speak, and we have already taken considerable positions in across Fund One and currently investing Fund Two.
That's very exciting, and I think what is nice is that you illustrate a number of important trends that have a way to run. There's whether it's the new age of parenting or of health to middle India or commerce enablement. These will be transformations that are many years in the making. So that's a lot for us to process and think about, and really exciting. I think that is a wonderful arc, taking us from your origins to now thinking about the future. And unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there. But Sanil, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed learning about both your journey and philosophy and impact that you're having on the venture ecosystem. Tell us if people want to learn more about what you're doing or follow Huddle Ventures. Where can they find you guys online?
Firstly, thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with you right now, and made certain notes from your expertise, and I'll definitely be picking your brain for more suggestions and thoughts to continuously evolve and learn. Have absolutely loved the podcast you've done prior to this. The depth that you're going into is definitely contributing a lot of newer perspectives for the entire ecosystem, which is frankly in its best phase today. I am extremely bullish, excited, both as a contributor and an observer to the ecosystem, and you're adding a lot of value to it. So thank you, and I truly appreciate you having me. For us to be where to be accessed, we are at Huddle Ventures. We can be reached via LinkedIn, on connect@huddleventures.vc. I'm accessible at Sanil at huddleventures.vc. We're extremely approachable. We love to have a conversation. I never shy away from a coffee, and would love to be in touch with anyone that would want to have a conversation with us, and where we feel we can add value. We're always happy to do so.
Thank you for your openness and for making the ecosystem better.
Thank you.